Finish wrapping up your evaluations, Barry Klein. And get ready for the next speaker. You're going to totally enjoy it. We'll start this one by introducing him via the video.
My life changed in mere seconds, just a few months after I celebrated that kickboxing victory, when a friend of mine lost control of the wheel of his car, ran off the road, hit a mound of sand, sending his car hurling into the air before tumbling back to earth end over end. It was in that one defining moment where I broke my neck that left me paralyzed from my chest down and diagnosed a quadriplegic. Now, I know you may never experience a situation as transforming that I just described to you, nor would ever wish that on you, but I do know you come here today with your own business and life challenges you're trying to conquer, and maybe in that alone, you and I share something in common. And if there's one thing I've learned about adversity, it is this. Life, my friends, it's what you make of it. You can choose to be bitter all day long when adversity and change strikes, or you can choose to be better. And I've come to learn choosing to be better, like focusing on those things that you can control in your life, your work out there in the marketplace. Controlling the controllables in your life, my friends, is a mindset, an attitude that can create clarity, and that clarity can keep your vision really clear and always in the forefront of your thinking and regardless of circumstances. So with that said, let me ask you this question. What is your vision? What are you really fighting for today heading into 2008? Professionally as well. Point is, when you know what you're fighting for, your purpose, your why you do what you do for a living, get ready to see complete success in your mind's eye first. Always begin with the end in mind, and in doing so, don't be afraid to challenge your way of thinking. And what I mean by that is this. The actress Helen Hunt was in a movie with Jack Nicholson. It was called what? And she won an Oscar for performance. But here's what you may not know. She was interviewed after the fact. The gentleman goes, Helen, now that you've won the Oscar, we hear you being offered different types of movie scripts. My question to you is this. How will you go about choosing which one best suits you? You know what she said? She said, I'll go with what scares me. Now think about that one just for a moment. Now ask yourself this question. What kind of mindset do I really need to be in today professionally to go with what scares me? And even if it makes me feel uncomfortable. And with that said, do me a favor. All of you right now, hold your arms out like I'm doing and relax your wrist completely. When your wrist is in this position, do you notice there's a gap between your index finger and thumb? Yes or no? Yes. Awesome. Curl your fingertips in about an inch. Now extend your wrist into the upright position. For some of you, do you notice how your index finger and thumb come closer together, if not touch? Yes or no? Yes. Relax your wrist. What happens? They come apart, you bring them back up, closer together. Now, if you think I look ridiculous doing this, Barry, you should see the way you look to me. You can relax your arms for a moment, okay? But here's the thing. By hanging out with Leslie, my physical therapist, she kept saying this. If you can adapt to be a little more flexible given your new set of circumstances, you can always change the direction and the outcome of your life. And as I worked incredibly hard just to move my wrist in my paralyzed state, over time, it began to move, and as my range of motion began to increase, it allowed two independent, paralyzed fingers to come together as one, as a team, allow me to pick up a plastic fork and a straw, the necessities of the good life. In the back of my mind, I started thinking to myself that going forward, maybe everything will be okay. And then something else occurred to me. When I saw my mom for the very first time, laying there, I could not move my arms. What's that one thing I could not do? Well, I couldn't hug her, right? However, because you're quadriplegic, your hands curling real tight, this downright position forced my fingers open. Laying there one day, create that little teeny gap, I realized that would give me an opportunity to do something I thought I may never do again. Shake my father's hand. And it's such a simple gesture, and one that you may do frequently, when you're out there in the marketplace, when you're networking, but Timmy in that morning, that grip, that human connection that had such profound meaning. Thank you for that. I was feeling pretty good about myself at this point in the game, okay? And that's when one of my doctors pulled me over after rehab one day, and he goes, "Hey, Scott, listen. I think right now you need to understand the seriousness of your spinal cord injury and come to realize that the movement you're getting back in your arms, which I might add is not uncommon at all for quads, but it is as good as it'll ever get." Now, I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but you know what I heard? I heard you might as well right now give up hope on the idea you'll progress even further. And you know what the problem was? This athlete bought into those words, man. I bought into those words, my vision tanked, and make matters tough on my family. They were home 2,000 miles away, and I stopped taking phone calls. 4 days later, out of deep concern, Dad somehow got me on the phone. I made a decision to tell him what happened. All he said was this: I was out there just a few weeks ago, and your mindset was so strong and so powerful. Favor. Go back, recapture that mindset, re-own it again. In the meantime, don't be upset with me. But I'm going to have a word with that doctor. And then come the next morning, I'll never forget this, come the next morning when I woke up, standing back at that doorway, looking back at me, was my dad. Letting me know a sense that everything would be okay. If I learned anything from my dad, whether you're a parent, whether you're a president or a CEO of a company, a meeting planner, or a 19-year-old quadriplegic, no matter how difficult life can be for you in those moments, you can always change your way of thinking. And this is when I made a decision. I was willing to fail going forward, willing to fail, but I'm willing to quit. It's a mindset that can define you as an individual, as a team, as a leader. It's a mindset that can keep you focused, while knowing that nothing worth achieving in your own life ever comes too easy as you unleash your own unique composite of skills, talent, and drive upon the marketplace. In hopes to reach lofty business goals and expectations. To do it, it takes grit and a willingness not to let someone else's beliefs paralyze you from achieving those things you believe in your mind that you can achieve. Here we go. Yeah. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Thank you. So I have a question. I got a question I want to ask you right now. It's the same question I asked 9,000 people a few weeks ago in Bangkok at the $1 Million Roundtable annual conference and global meeting. How many of you now are ready to get out of your own chair, so to speak, and stand up to the challenges that you're experiencing in your life and your work and take action in ways you've never in your life thought about taking action? Anyone? Now, so you know that I'm providing kind of false hope, it took me 6 years of my life, 2,190 days, to go from a wheelchair to eventually the use of a simple cane. So all I'm saying is this: don't give up too soon on your dreams, your corporate purpose, your shared values, your mission, and don't ever stop believing in yourself. I never did, nor should you. Now, as I was getting stronger, I put myself in a position to teach myself the game of golf, a game I had so much passion for growing up. And then one day I was paired up with someone new, John. On the way to the first hole, all I wanted to do was make that first impression. You ever tried to make that first impression with someone, right? I figured if I could swing my golf club faster than I ever had before, that maybe my golf ball would go that much further. So I have you know this. That day I took this monster swing. And I swung my golf club so fast that my momentum carried me off of my feet and on the ground face first, right? So there I am lying there in the middle of the golf course looking like a displaced beached whale. To make matters worse, I noticed my little white golf ball was still standing firmly on that tee. Well, that day, though, man, I beat John straight up. But the question is how? How did I beat John? Same way you can beat your competition. Focus a whole lot more on your strengths, your experience, your expertise, the value, and the services you know you can offer your customers. And don't be afraid to make minor adjustments along the way. What I love about golf, even if you don't play, you got a choice while you're out there. You can compete with yourself or you can compete with each other. But we all know at the end of the day that you are your toughest competitor, and it even goes for Leroy. I met Leroy in New Orleans. Before I did, I was taking a New Year's Eve with some friends of mine at a place called Pat O'Brien's. At the turn of midnight, I said goodbye to my friends. I grabbed my cane, walked out on the world-famous Bourbon Street. It was packed with people that night, so packed I lost my footing, fell down. When I looked back up, though, there was this guy standing over me, 6'5", 250 pounds. And all I hear is this. Hey, you down there. Happy New Year. My name is Leroy, 41 years old, born and raised in New Orleans. Looks like you can use a hand. So once he got me up, he asked me my name. And he goes, Scott, where are you headed? I said, Leroy, headed to the end of Bourbon Street. He goes, well, as luck would have it, I'm heading the same direction. Follow me. I'll make a hole. And in that moment, Leroy turns around, starts yelling out these words over and over again at the top of his lungs. The words are, watch out, people! Handicap man is coming through! I can tell you this, he didn't just make a hole, he parted the Red Sea. As you might imagine, though, we were making great forward progress, but I was getting embarrassed by the mantra, so I eventually disappeared without him knowing. The problem was, he found me. So Leroy found me 10 minutes later. When he did, he goes, what happened to you? I said, I couldn't keep up. He's like, no worries, I'll slow down. I said, can you do me a favor? Can you stop yelling out the words, handicap man's coming through? He's like, why, does that bother you or something? I said, no, man, I don't enjoy the way you're presenting it. And in that moment, Leroy turns around, starts yelling out these words over and over again. The words are, watch out, people! King man's coming through! But here's the thing. When Leroy and I first met, engaged in conversation, he asked me a question. I answered. He listened. I followed. Now, I wasn't necessarily excited by the way he was verbally communicating his message, so I bailed, right? But when he found me a few minutes later, 10 minutes later, he asked a question. I answered. He listened. In a moment's notice, Leroy adapted his mindset on the fly. And in doing so, I not only followed, we both got to our next destination. To get you here today to this showcase, you had to navigate your own Bourbon Street, right? But to get you to your next destination, to meet the future needs of your customers, your organization, you may need to adapt, in some cases on the fly. Reason being, and you heard it, our world and your industry and marketplace is changing at the fastest rate in human history. One way to conquer it is by adapting. And when you're adapting, you're reevaluating. When you're reevaluating, you're reinventing. When you're reinventing, you're reigniting your life, your passion, and your drive to keep leaning forward into your future. So the way I see it, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable. Look, as a single man, I'll share this with you. I was reluctant to go to my 30th high school reunion. Friends enticed me to go, so I went. Had an amazing conversation with a classmate, Kim. Happy to report, conversations continued. She has become the love of my life. And the moral of the story is that if you happen to be single, go to your high school reunion. Now, speaking of reunions, 20 years after I broke my neck, I returned back to St. George's Island where the accident happened. It gave me an opportunity to reflect back on my life, and I would encourage you to do it from time to time. Reflect back on how far you have come, right? Choices, decisions you have made. The night before the accident, I made a decision to get in Ed's car as a passenger, knowing the two of us had started drinking, and I was not buckled up. And when Dr. Stringer first gave me that news, over time, I eventually realized that you cannot always choose the precise outcomes of the choices you make in your life, but you can always take ownership of those choices. And that's when I made a decision to take ownership, accountability, if you will, over what happened to me, as opposed to blaming Ed. Now, when I left St. George's Island, I started thinking about Ed. Think of it as this. I was in the hospital for 6 months. 6. He never once called. He never showed up. And one of the first times I saw him was 2 years later. We passed each other in a group of people. We connected with our eyes. We both nodded. He turned around, he left. And I felt anger running through my veins at a level I'd never experienced it before. And I'm curious, has anything ever happened to you in your own life, professionally as well, that you truly believe has been unfair or unjust? Well, this is when I made a decision to just let it happen. Those are the words my dad shared with me when I was first paralyzed. What it means is don't resist change, but embrace it. So I made a decision to just let it happen and let the anger move through me as opposed to defining me for the rest of my life. Now, I've never seen Ed since that point, but a couple years ago through Facebook, I went looking for him and I found him. Guess what? I friend him. He friends me back with a text. The text said this: Scott, it's so good to hear from you. The truth is, not a day that goes by that I don't think about what happened on St. George's Island. All I wish I could do is go back and change what happened, but because I cannot, I am riddled with remorse and guilt. And when I heard those words, I heard a voice in the back of my mind, eases pain. So I wrote him back. I said, Ed, if I could go back and change what happened in my life, I would not, based on new choices and decisions. Then something occurred to me. I thought Ed was hoping to God I'd forgive him for never showing up. And in doing so, it not only freed Ed, in many ways, it freed me. The power to forgive someone in your life, a business partner, an associate, a friend, a family, is a choice, and the power of choice can be life-changing. I thank God each and every day for giving me the strength to stand up to life's challenges. And when you find that strength within to stand up to your own life's challenges is when you learn, you grow. When you grow, you begin to change. And when you begin to change, your vision, mindset, and grit, they begin to strengthen. And you start believing in your heart and your mind, you can conquer any mountaintop. Last story. One mountaintop I conquered after the fact was with the help of a friend of mine whose name happens to be Brad Blessman. He wanted to teach me how to snow ski on my own 2 feet from 12,000 feet above sea level as a disabled skier. We approached Vail, Colorado. All he said was this: learn how to snow ski. You got to lean forward, break the fall line, let gravity help assist you down the mountain. I eventually got it, and when I did, he then took me up to a ledge right under 12,000 feet, overlooking an enormous crater on the backside of a mountain. They call it China Bowl. It's steep, it's treacherous, it's bumpy, no one's back there. But being on top of the mountain gives you a pretty good view of your next destination. And to get you to your next destination, to hit the next benchmark in your life, it may require you to be fearless and not afraid to break the fall line. 2 hours later, we get to the bottom, and it would have never happened if Blessman wasn't part of my life. I'll leave you with this. Who's that Blessman in your life? Stretching you just a little further. And who are you willing to be a Blessman to? Because isn't that what life is all about? Making a difference in people's lives. As meeting planners, I think you got a good idea of how you could possibly utilize me in one of your conferences. God bless. I'm out of time, and thank you.